You subscribed, but are you a channel member? You probably should be.
You get extra additional content, Madden gameplays, you get early access to tons of different videos, as well as what do we call those things again? Oh, that's right. Live membership only live streams. That's right. Only for members, only for you. You get all of our time and not just football, Ant.
Yeah, lots of other stuff as well. So go ahead and click the join button right now and join the 49ers Cutback crew.
Get some cool emojis also.
Oh, yeah, that as well.
San Francisco 49ers select
Welcome to 49ers War Room. This is going to be absolutely insane. We have the smart guys with us today, Alex.
You know, that's right. Chat, if you haven't met them already, if you're not familiar, we got Jordan up there top left. We got Vish over there on the top right. Gentlemen, it's incredible to have you both on. First time having you on the channel, which is a lot of fun, especially for War Room, seeing as you two are going to be the general managers today. We're going to be making pitches for players, and we're going to see who the 49ers walk away with and see if we can make the best case for these guys. First off, Jordan, how are you doing? And then after that, my guy, why should you start off this episode as the general manager for the Cutback Group?
Well, I'm doing fantastic. Anytime that I can be lumped in the same sentence with Vish and get a smart guy label just because I happen to be next to Vish is a victory for me. I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for having me on. I think that I would make a good GM because I've done my fair share of studying these guys and diving into the tape. I also know that there's a lot of blind luck that goes into this. And, I'm just saying when it comes to picking lotto numbers, I've had some good success in the past. And sometimes that's what you got to do with these guys as we get into the 4th, 5th, 6th round where the 49ers do have a lot of those 9 picks in this draft. So, I think my body of work speaks for itself, but I also am, I'm riding a little bit of a hot streak when it comes to luck. So maybe I can, max that out here and have it translate to the mock draft as a GM as well.
Fair enough, man. Fair enough. Hey, I like the pitch, TCC. I hope you liked it as well. But Vish, introduce yourself, my guy. And why does it need to be you? Why should you start as the GM with pick 61?
What's up? First off, thank you for having me. It's an honor to come on with you guys. You guys are awesome. I really appreciate you having me. And shout out to Jordan. He's fantastic what he does. Make sure you're following him and his work at Niners Nation. He's excellent at covering the team. To be totally honest with you, I don't think I should be the GM of the team. So I don't know if I can market myself towards that. The draft isn't my forte. I think it's too much of a crapshoot. I think there's too many variables. For me, every year studying the draft is more of a personal hobby. I do it just out of the fun of being able to learn a couple more things about certain college offenses, the way they run their offense, certain college defenses, the way they run their defense, certain players, how specific roles are used, especially on defense, because I think college defenses, because there's such a massive talent margin, they do a lot more creative things that makes it interesting for you to learn how specific players are used and all of that. And I use it as more of a case study to try and figure out, just to go back year by year and see what works and what doesn't year by year and try to change how I view the draft process. In terms of actually hitting and missing on draft picks, I think it's too hard. I think it's really hard. I think there's too many variables. I'd never want that pressure of having to make a decision because I'm a little indecisive, and, having to go through why is this better than this is a really, really hard question, because I think a lot of the conversations about players are more gray rather than black and white. Like, this guy has these qualities, this guy has these qualities. What makes that better than that? So I really don't like that conversation. So I'll just come out and say I think Jordan should be the GM in short.
Hey, you know what? Respect and tip of the hat there to you, good sir. You're coming in. You understand what your limitations are, and you're A-okay with letting it roll with that gentleman there. And look, TCC, we'll see. We'll see where we're at here. We got 21 votes in right now. 64% are going with Jordan as well, Vish. So you know what? You got your wish. Jordan, you're going to be starting off as the GM.
My vote too.
You're going to be starting off, my guy, as the general manager, as the guy there. And look, we got to just, for whatever reason, get ourselves back to the actual mock draft simulator instead of whatever it's showing right now on the screen, because we need to be able to know where we're going with this, who we're looking at, and which guys are the guys that you guys are going to be looking to take. Look, at the end of the day here, this is going to be interesting. It's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. First and foremost, we got pick 61, Jordan. I have seen a couple of the things you've done. I have watched a couple of your mock drafts. I know that at times you like to trade up. I know that you're a fan of that. Is that something you want to try and do here as well?
It depends, really. So this is my whole thinking, right? So I just did an article for Niners Nation where I kind of went back because I really liked what Vish mentioned about like using past drafts to kind of notice patterns, because like people will say like every draft is different. And while that's true to an extent, there really is a good amount of precedent that gets set that is followed year after year. So I basically went back and I looked at how draft classes have panned out over the last 5 seasons between picks 50 and 105. So the 49ers are picking at 61, they're picking at 93, and they're picking at 105. I upped it towards 50 just to see what the, kind of past pattern has been with those picks, because I think the 49ers are within striking distance. And to be honest with you, the value to me wasn't really there based on what it would cost, unless the team is willing to really give up significant capital to jump up to like the late 30s, early 40s. And I think you're looking at a scenario where if you do that, like you're starting with giving up 61 and 93 to make that move. And the team's probably not even entertaining that offer, if we're being honest. So I'm looking at trading up, but more so with the picks at 93 and 105 rather than 61, because I'm just not seeing the value in moving up unless there is a team that really does entertain that, where they're willing to take on 61, 93, maybe an additional. They have 2 compensatory picks at the end of the 6th. I do like some guys. Like I really like Boy Mafe. I like Arnold Ebiketie. I like Jaquan Brisker. If those guys are falling in that 35 to 45 range, they're on day 2 to start the 2nd round, I would feel comfortable going up. But it would have to be a player like that where I really have conviction that they're going to not only be a starter, but be an impact player and be one that can step in right away. Because otherwise, I just don't see the value. Like they have a very strong foundation, but they'd be much better off just, playing the numbers game and staying not necessarily in each position at 61, 93, and 105, but not losing the ability to have multiple picks in the top 100. Top 100 picks are so valuable, even on the back end of that range. And I just think that they'd be better off kind of staying there, if that makes sense.
Fair. So let's let this thing roll then a little bit. We can let this thing roll a little bit. And if we start getting closer to that 30, 40 range and you're liking some guys and want to move up, we can.
Okay. Fair enough? Audio cut out. I can't hear you guys.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, he said that they're just going to let the draft roll. And then if you feel like trading up, go for it. I personally don't believe, I'll say that right off the bat. I don't believe in trading up in the draft. I believe more in trading down. If it's a crapshoot, I like to maximize my opportunity to get multiple cracks at getting it right in a draft. So if I prefer to have 10 to 12 picks, so I have greater margin for error statistically. So I personally, I don't think I will trade up unless there is, a player that, like Jordan said, that I'm just smitten with. But I don't think there were any on how far I've gotten that I felt like, ooh, I want to trade up for them.
Fair. Jordan, I don't know. I'm hoping you're hearing us now. I'm thinking we're doing better now with the audio. Look, we got Boy Mafe just went off the board at 30 to the Kansas City Chiefs. You had David Ajabu go off the board at 29. So they took back-to-back edge rushers. Interesting there for the Kansas City Chiefs. And then you had a little bit earlier Jermaine Johnson going as well. So we're sitting here getting into that 31 range. You want to keep letting this thing roll? I'm assuming he does, but I got him here. It says he says he's muted there. So go ahead and unmute for me real quick, Jordan.
Hey, so I
I
can't
think
hear
his
you
audio
guys
is
on
still
my
cutting in
end.
and out.
I'm not picking up audio. It's cutting in and out for Vish, but I can't hear you guys other than like Vish every once in a while. So I don't know if you need me to like jump back out and jump back in.
Go ahead and real quick, kind of just jump out and jump
like
back in for
very
us.
sparingly picking up.
That is very interesting, my guy. That is very interesting. I don't know what's going on there. TCC, this is a little different. Give us 1 second, TCC. We'll be right back. We're going to see if we can get the audio fixed, and just give us 1 second.
Perfect.
All right, we're back. We got it going again. No issues, no problems, it seems like now. It seems like everything's back up and running. So we got a couple of guys that went off the board. Boy Mafi, David Ajabu as well. Kansas City went back-to-back edge rushers. I'm just going to let this thing roll a little bit here, my guy, because it looks like we may have lost him again, Ant. We may have lost his audio again. We're going to let this thing roll here and let it get to pick 4. We'll let it get to pick 45, and then take a look, see at what's going on and who is going to be available and what guys have come off the board here for the San Francisco 49ers. Jordan, can you hear us now? Are you picking this up audio wise? Because if not, I think it might just be headphones for you, man. I think it might just be the audio output for you. You may have to just change what it's coming out of because we're hearing you just fine when you talk, when you're unmuted anyway.
Yeah, I don't think he can hear you.
No, I don't think he can either.
So either.
It's interesting. It's an interesting situation there.
Not gonna lie, massive advantage here for me.
Yeah. Extreme advantage here for you, my God. I don't understand necessarily how that's happening. I don't get it. It seems like whenever we come to this screen specifically, too, is where we're having the issue. So, TCC, give us 1 second. We're gonna be right back.
No, I think.
All right. So we got this here now. We're back. We're actually good now. Jordan can actually hear us. We have on the board here at 45, Jalen Petrie just got selected. Edge rushing guys, you still have Arnold Ebiketie, who actually went off the board at 35. So Ebiketie gone, as well as a couple of other edge rushing guys. So it looks like there may not be some edge rushing prospects that are going to be there at 61. Do you want to try and trade up, Jordan? Or you want to just let it roll there?
I'd probably let it roll, to be honest with you. Those are the guys that I'm really enamored with the most. The only other name that really I like in that range that's been going there a lot is Sky Moore, but I don't really think I wouldn't trade up for a wide receiver as much as I like him as a player. I don't really think they need to do it at this point.
I had 2 edge rushers. I think one of them just went. I think one of them might still be there. Nick Benito was a guy I really liked.
And Nick Benito just went. You're not wrong there, Vish. He just went. So this is what we're looking at right now. You have Asamoah, you have Kingsley Enagbare, Abraham Lucas, Cameron Thomas, Jalen Tolbert, Brandon Smith, and Trey McBride, Kirby Joseph, Justin Ross, Dylan Parham. Those are guys near the top of the board here, all the way up through about 67. Jordan, is there a position that you want to be looking at specifically here with the names that I just read off? Do you want to see some wide receiver options maybe as well?
No, because there's a name there who I actually really like, and it may be a little bit unconventional or unpopular. But in my whole thinking with this is that at 61, I want to get a player who I think can be an impact player in the short term while also having a potential role as an impact player in the long term. I'm not expecting to get, an all-pro, Pro Bowl level talent, but a viable starter, even if it's not right away. And the name I'm looking at right here is a player who I actually really like, and I've noticed has slipped a bit in these mocks in recent weeks. And it's actually Trey McBride, the tight end from Colorado State. So my whole thinking
Oh my.
is that I think that the 49ers have had a very, there haven't been great options behind George Kittle. There's not really any way to sugarcoat this. There haven't been great options behind George Kittle at the tight end position. I think Ross Dwelley has really good hands. I don't think he's a good blocker. I think Charlie Warner's pretty good as a blocker, especially in the run game. Don't think he's a great receiver. And I think even just for the short time we saw it, when we were able to see the two tight end sets with Jordan Reed and Kittle, I really liked the matchups that it created. I liked the versatility that it brought to the offense. And I'm also at the point now where, as good as I think George Kittle is, and as much as I think George Kittle is still playing at a very high level, he's also approaching 30 years old pretty soon. He was old when he came out. He's a guy that, at a certain point, you're going to have to start planning for life after. And I think that Trey McBride is a guy who actually reminds me a ton of Kittle. I got to watch him up close at the combine. His chops as a receiver were there. He had good hands. He had good feet. He looked clean running routes. Big, strong, physical guy. Dominated production in a in a smaller conference, not a smaller conference, but it's not the SEC, it's not the Big Ten. So you want a guy like that to really go out and dominate. I felt like he did that. So to me, you get a guy that you can immediately go out and slot into a starting role in these two tight end sets. Obviously, Kittle's still going to be tight end one. But to me, I'd much rather have this offense go out in 21, 22 personnel and have an offense where you're having these two tight end sets and you have Ayuk and you have Debo. Because realistically, as much as I like Jaywan Jennings, I like the Ray McLeod signings, to me, getting a high-end tight end two like this just creates an element of, electricity and explosion in this offense that we really haven't seen. And I think McBride, out of all the players I see here, has the greatest potential to be an impact player, not only right away, but 5 years down the line as well. I've mocked Enagbare a couple times here. The more and more I watch him, the more I'm kind of falling less in, love with his play, just based on it seems like there's times when he doesn't win right away off the point of attack when he's getting off the line of scrimmage. He doesn't really have a secondary or third option, and he just he's not really a guy that feels like has a deep bag. I like Abraham Lucas a lot. He was in my mock yesterday, but I feel very confident that Trey McBride is a player that can take this offense to another level. And I think even with Trey Lance, the 49ers are going to run the ball a ton, and getting in these two tight end sets with two dynamic elite receiving talents would be something to me that would take it to the next level.
Vish, do you want to make a pitch for another position, or do you like this tight end option here in Trey McBride?
Yeah, I want to go to the edge board. There's a player that I really like that I don't think has been taken yet. And it's right there, Josh Paschal from Kentucky. He's one of my favorite edge players in this draft. I think he's versatile. I think, he's not the conventional edge rusher that you would want to pair with Nick Bosa, because he's not your bendy, twitchy, D Ford type edge rusher that, maybe Nick Bonito would have been if he got to 61 but I really like Josh Paschal. I think he's very disruptive. I think he has the strength in an NFL body to play from day one. I think he's ready to play in both the run and the pass game. I think he's a starter. And if you're talking about an impact player from day one, which Jordan was talking about too, to me, Josh Paschal would be exactly that. I personally thought that he would go a little bit higher, but I guess PFF doesn't really like him as much. I do think he's going to end up going higher because I think he's more impressive on film than the 61st best player in the draft, but that's who I would go at this spot for sure.
I would just point out too really quickly, I agree completely with that, and I would have no fault with that. The reason why I was opting for McBride is that there's an edge player who I've been taking a ton with 93 and 105 that I really like, but I had Paschal in my first mock, and I've tried to point out, I don't know how much film you've gotten to watch, Vish, but a lot of people get so caught up with pure pass rushing ability that they forget that you still have to be you have to defend the run as an edge player, especially if you're going to be a 3-down player. And I feel like Paschal has the potential to be a 3-down player, and he has the ability to step in and be a above average run defender right off the bat. And I think that he's somebody that, while he may not have a deep bag of pass rushing moves, you can kind of coach that up and develop that over time. But I'm with you 100%. I would have no problem with that at all. I just wanted to say my thinking is that I can still get a player a couple, picks down the line, but I think that Paschal would be great at 61. And it makes me feel much better because I took that and I thought that was kind of like a, out there take. I did it my first mock for Niners Nation a couple weeks ago, and I had him at 61. So the fact that Vish is on board with it definitely makes me feel better about it.
Yeah, he's explosive. He's violent. He has ridiculous play strength. I think he's better than the 61st best player in the draft. I really do. I think he's closer, honestly, to like guys like Boya Mafe and David Ojabo than going 30 picks below them. So I personally, I'd love him at 61. To me, he would be an automatically. You put him in this D line with Kosaric, and he's disruptive and he's kicking ass.
Yeah, I would like to throw a couple things at you. First off, Jordan, with the Trey McBride, do you think the 49ers are transitioning more, though, to a 3 wide receiver look with the fact of how good Jawan Jennings was blocking as the 4th best, blocking wide receiver in the league? Would it make sense to have him on the field more because you're going to get more nickel sets, more personnel settings that are better for them, more wide open ability, with Trey Lance will be able to use the extra room that it gives him to run the zone option or the zone read and be able to create lanes to where maybe these defensive ends are put in predicaments to where they could get lanes for Elijah Mitchell and Jeff Wilson Jr. to run the football. So maybe they are actually transitioning away from that, and why they're going with cheaper options like Ross Dwelley, bringing him back. Maybe they wouldn't be as willing as they were in previous seasons to go with a 2 tight end look most of the time.
So I think honestly, and it's all about personal philosophy. Everybody's going to differ, and I can't say that Kyle Shanahan's thinking, but I can say for myself personally, I would much rather have a dynamic tight end talent that can put teams that can force teams to roll out their base defense based on the fact that I think you'd be able to generate more of a mismatch with that tight end on a linebacker or on a safety out of a base defense rather than, running the ball at one of these nickel corners. Because while I do think that not every nickel corner is great against the run, and there are a lot that frankly are just terrible, I think it's easier to find a nickel corner that can fill run gaps and can tackle than it is to find, outside linebackers and safeties that can run with tight end talents like Kittle and McBride regularly. So for me personally, I still think having, it's part of the reason why I think Kyle Juszczyk's so important, the ability to generate mismatches while forcing opposing teams to roll out base defenses as the league's transitioning towards nickel pretty much being a base defense and sub packages being the base for most teams. I still think Kyle Shanahan's going to kind of zig while the rest of the league zags. And I still think even with Trey Lance, I think a lot of people have it in their mind that because Trey Lance has a big arm that the 49ers are going to come out and throw 35, 40 times a game. I still think the plan is to try to run 35 times a game if possible. If Kyle Shanahan can get away with, handing the ball off 40 times a game, he's still going to do it. So to me, it's just my own philosophy where I think that having that 2 tight end set and the ability to roll out 2 dynamic, game-changing abilities at that position is going to create more havoc than running the ball out of 11 personnel with Jawan Jennings in the slot.
I think those are all great points. I have one thing on why I wouldn't go tight end at 61. So I cannot speak much on the player, Trey McBride. I have not studied any of the tight ends. I know that him and the Ohio State guy are kind of looked at as the best tight ends in a not very good class just by, watching TV and watching Daniel Jeremiah's big board and all those people. But the reason I don't think going tight end at 61 is necessarily prudent is because I think tight end is a very, very difficult position to translate to the NFL because the responsibilities of when you scout a guy in college are totally different from what he's asked to do in the NFL, right? In college, they don't run a lot of different run plays. So you're really, really just mastering assignments on 2 or 3 different run plays on who you block and who you're blocking in front of you. And then in terms of the receiving game, it's, some offenses are very RPO based. So you're running a lot of glance routes. Some offenses are, a little more heavy play action and they're going to motion you out into the flat, but you're not able to see, every single thing that he might be asked to do in this offense. And I trust Jordan's scouting for sure. I think that Trey McBride would be a fine pick. I just think that there's going to be a bit of a learning curve because of the position and because of the typical college responsibility from other tight ends I've studied in the past. And if we're talking about an impact player at 61, I'm not necessarily sure a tight end could come into this offense. I mean, Charlie Warner, I thought had some of the best blocking film I'd ever seen from a tight end. Like, you want to talk about a body when he was drafted at Georgia, the guy was built like, I mean, dare I say, a brick shit house. Like, he was just dominating and moving.
I was hoping you were going to say
SEC.
that.
And then you saw him come into the NFL, and his first preseason functional strength was actually a question mark because he was getting pushed around a little bit. And that learning curve to me actually scares me a little bit at the position. And that's why if you're talking impact player at 61, I think I would stay a little bit away from tight end. And to me, that's why I went edge. And I know I'm smitten with the player. I really like Josh Paschal at 61. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing his name right. I don't know if it's Pascal or Paschal. I never heard somebody say his name, so I'm not sure because, you know, there's no audio when I'm watching this guy. But I think that because if for me, when I'm looking at edges, and to me, the most important thing in the modern NFL is being able to move your four guys around. So if you have four really good guys, it's being able to move them around, have stunts and twists, and being able to have, you know, your 5 technique rush on the edge, your 3 technique be able to play as a 5 technique, be able to just make slight changes to your front. I think it helps a lot in the run defense, and I think it helps a lot in terms of being able to create favorable matchups in the pass game for a guy like Nick Bosa. If you want to create a one-on-one for him, you need other guys who are capable from rushing from elsewhere. That's why Arden Key's ability to kick inside, and then Eric Armstead's ability to be so proficient both rushing, you know, Eric Armstead can essentially play 1 through 7 techniques. I mean, techniques is not really the plural for what I'm talking about, but Eric Armstead's ridiculous versatility just allows the Niners defensive line to create so many different matchups in terms of, because they're able to just essentially screw with protection schemes using him and where he lines up. And so because of that, I think Paschal, because of his body, because of his strength, because of, you know, how explosive he is, I think he offers some versatility. I don't want to poo-poo Jordan's pick because I think he made a lot of phenomenal points on why it makes sense. But that's something about tight ends personally that if you're talking about an impact player at 61, it scares me a little bit.
Well, here's my thing with impact players here at 61, and Jordan, I think you guys are correct. You got to get impact players at 61. The problem is that Trey McBride won't be able to have said impact because of George Kittle's presence on the field. That's where I kind of like have a pause. I love Trey McBride. Ant can tell you this. Trey McBride is my favorite tight end in this entire class, and at no point in ever in any mock drafts that I think there would be a possibility, or even in draft day, that we'd have an option of Trey McBride at 61. That being said, he's not going to have the same level of impact that some of these other guys that you've brought up already, whether that be Anagbari, whether that be Paschal, or the guy I'll actually make the pitch for, which is Alec Pierce. 6'3", runs the 4.3, big body guy, can go up in space, can be able to take the top off the defense, add something for your quarterback, adds the deep threat, the big body guy as well that's going to be able to play in those 3 tight end sets. I think three wide receiver sets, 3 wide receiver sets or more, or 3 wide receiver sets, and his ability to be able to work in the rotation and do some different dynamic things is very beneficial for the 49ers, being able to take the top off the defense. Yes, they added Raymond McLeod, but they added a smaller wide receiver in Raymond McLeod, who isn't going to be able to necessarily win those 50-50 contested balls that we've seen Trey Lance. I mean, all of you have seen Trey Lance. You know, Jordan, you were at camp last year. You saw the incredible deep ball that this young man throws. It's absolutely incredible. Give him a 6'3" guy who's got ridiculously good speed and is ridiculously tall, can get up in space and make those catches. And I feel a lot better about Trey Lance not having to sling the ball 30 times a game like you talked about, because we only need 4 or 5 of those one-on-one 50-50 balls to be completed, and a guy like Alec Pierce makes it a lot easier. What are you guys thinking?
I will say, so first of all, I don't disagree with anything Vish said, and I like Paschal a lot. One other thing I think I would add is that I think he's somebody, like we saw Arden Key be an edge guy with a lot of really good physical traits where they were able to kind of exploit this, not only with the stunts with him rushing from the edge, but also place him over guards, have him line up at 3 tech. I think Paschal could do all those things as well. So I'm like completely on board with that pick. And I also want to add, I agree. I think you could argue tight end is the toughest transition from college to the pros, which is why you don't see a lot of these guys with the exception of a few transcendent talents. A lot of times you hear that like 3rd year breakout synonymous with tight ends because it takes some time to get accustomed. If it was anybody but McBride, I would not be selecting a tight end here. And again, maybe this is my own personal bias steeping in here. I just think that he's going to be a really good player. And I personally think back to so many of those years in New England when it was Gronk and Aaron Hernandez and the kind of mismatches that they were able to generate out of those two tight end sets, that I feel like a lot of what Kyle has evolved his offense into has taken away a lot of concepts from what the Patriots were running during that time. And I always have kind of wondered if that was something that he might have looked at as well, where if the value's there, can I have my own kind of, not say those two were incredible at the same time. So I'm not saying Trey McBride automatically makes it, Gronk and Hernandez 2.0, but I've always kind of wondered if that's something that Shanahan would look at. The only other thing I would add on Alec Pierce, so I know Chris Sims had him ranked as like his third receiver in the class or something like that. He got a ton of buzz. After taking a closer look, I was a little bit concerned with his change of direction ability and some of his routes in the short to intermediate area. He looked really good running north to south, but I was a little bit hesitant on the short area, change of direction, running comebacks, and some of the things that I think he's really going to be asked to do in Kyle's offense. So that would be the only reason I would have pause on Pierce personally.
Fair.
So I liked the Pierce. I also saw, I don't know if he's the number 3 receiver in the draft, but here's why I do like Pierce. I think he solves a need. I don't think the 49ers have a true ball winning X receiver. I don't think, in terms of just lining up on the outside and running past corners vertically every single play, I've never looked at Brandon Ayuk as that guy. Sometimes I feel like Brandon Ayuk can be slow off the ball. Sometimes I feel like, in fact, he's the slowest 49ers receiver off the ball. But I think Brandon Ayuk is a hell of a player, but I don't think his game is necessarily, challenging corners vertically every single play. That is Alec Pierce's game to the T. I like the case you made. I don't like going receiver at 61. I don't. Even though I view receiver as a premium position, like, man, it leaves a little bit of a salty taste after, how many different draft picks are we going to see the Niners go receiver, and it just continues to be a need. But the case you laid out, I would not hate the pick at all, because I don't think they have what Alec Pierce brings. And I think it's a skill set that they could covet. I think Jordan brought up great points on why I'm not sure he would be Kyle Shanahan's cup of tea, because I think there's two things with him. It's not just one. I think he gets vertical very, very quickly, and he's very good at challenging people vertically. But at times, he can be not so smooth transitioning in and out of his breaks, whether he's running an out route or a comeback like Jordan mentioned. But the other thing I think is that he's kind of, I thought the most disappointing thing with him, for such an impressive physical specimen, was how average he was with the ball in his hands. And that was kind of what disappointed me personally with Alec Pierce. So I don't know if he would be Shanahan's cup of tea that way, but what you laid out, I'm here for it. I don't think they have that type of player. I would not hate it at all.
So, Jordan, what do you want to do here at 61? Is it Trey McBride? Are you let the bias seep in, or are you going to go a different direction?
No, you know what? I'm going to go with what Vish chose, because I had Paschal in one of my mocks early, and I think that Vish laid out a lot of the reasons why I felt good taking him there too. There is another edge guy that maybe I'm going to be tempted to take at 93 or 105, to be honest with you, because I was very enamored with as well. But I feel like, so if I'm the GM in this scenario, right, I like McBride. I'm also not Kyle Shanahan. I'm not the one dialing up plays. And if they're not going to be committed to going out in a ton of 2 tight end sets and really utilizing McBride and his really great ability after the catch, being physical after the catch, it may not have the impact. If I'm coach, GM, offensive coordinator, all those things, yeah, I'm taking McBride because I personally have a vision for it. But if we're talking about just, constructing a football team and giving another person pieces to work with, I think if I step back from my own bias, Paschal would be the better pick.
Well, there it is. Josh Paschal it is. And Vish, you are now on the clock, my guy, at pick 93. We'll let this thing roll to that spot because you're going to be the gentleman making the selection. Is there a position that you're going to be kind of looking at, or a guy specifically that you want to be targeting, or anything like that?
Yeah, I don't know if he's gone already. I have a feeling he is, because it would be the guy from Houston, the nickel, Marcus Jones.
Marcus Jones is still currently on the board. He has not been taken
there,
yet.
I'm taking him no brainer. I think he's a phenomenal player. I think he's unbelievable. But if he's not, yeah, okay, Marcus Jones. That's who I would take. To me, he's an unbelievable player. I'll say this. I think 49ers play Twitter before the draft, and I've been on 49ers Twitter for 2.5 years now. And I watched it, observed it for 2 drafts. They stand some of the weirdest players, man. Like I'll see it all over the timeline, and then I'll go watch him, and I'll be like, huh? Like, this is the guy everybody wants. Like, I don't want this guy for the 49ers. But Marcus Jones, 49ers Twitter, one of their best finds. Absolutely unbelievable player. I think the only knock on him really is size. Besides that, I don't know if you can say anything wrong with Marcus Jones. To me, I think that if he was 5'9", he would be, or 5'10", he would be Jason Verrett in terms of he would be able to line up on the outside too. Him being 5'8" scares you. I think he's the rare slot corner in this draft that I actually look at and say, man, that's an upgrade from K'Wan Williams, because I think he's just a better overall athlete than K'Wan Williams. I love Marcus Jones. That's who I would take here.
Yeah, I think this is where best available and need actually meet. Marcus Jones is the best available. The 49ers have a need there. This, to me, I'm not going to argue against Vish, because this is exactly what I would do in this situation. I think that's what the 49ers do. You add on top of that Marcus Jones has return ability, so potentially could add something on special teams. I think this is a bang-up selection. I liked everything he was doing. Very fluid player. So, yeah, I'm with Vish on this one.
What about you, Jordan? What are you feeling here at 93? I know you had mentioned an edge rusher. Do you want to make a pitch for him?
So as of now, I think that player will still be on the board at 105. So maybe we could come around there. It's really hard to argue against it, considering the fact the 49ers haven't really addressed that slot corner position in a way that I feel comfortable with. I don't like the idea of kicking in Mosley and having Ambry Thomas be on outside on sub packages. I think having specified roles for these guys would be much more prudent, given the way that they don't really move their pieces around in the secondary. Jimmy Ward obviously will spin down and stuff like that, but they really don't have the corners follow receivers. And I just think it would be better to have a guy in a specialized role. Like, slot corner is a starting position in the modern NFL. So it's not like you're just reaching for a player where 10 years ago, maybe slot corner wouldn't be somebody you'd target specifically with a top 100 pick. I like Marcus Jones a lot. So I don't, there's nobody here where I'm, pounding the table like, no, sorry, I can't agree with Vish on this. Just a couple of guys that I do really like. I do like Donovan West a lot, the center out of Arizona State. I think he's somebody that could potentially be a long-term solution. It sounds like Alex Mack's coming back for one more year, but I'd be shocked if he played beyond that. So Donovan West is a guy I really like. Max Mitchell's on the board there as well, the tackle out of Louisiana. He's somebody who I think, if you have concerns about Mike McGlinchey, or if you're not sure that you're going to be able to work out some kind of long-term extension with McGlinchey, Max Mitchell is a guy that I think would slot in very well if McGlinchey comes and plays on this fifth-year option and then moves on after. But as of now, like, Marcus Jones is a guy that could step on the field from day one and have an impact as a starter in that secondary. Vish mentioned his size, but I also think that if you play above what your measurables are, the size isn't as concerning to me. And I saw him look like a player who played much more physical than his height and weight would, lead you to believe. So I'm on board with it. I have no problems at all with that pick whatsoever.
I'm not going to say anything against this either, my guy. Marcus Jones is a guy that anytime we're at this spot of the draft, if he's available, this is something I want to go after as well. Vish, I think you hit this one out of the park. I think everyone here is in agreement, and I think we just made the easiest selection that's ever happened on War Room, where it's consensus across the board, and nobody has a negative or a doubtful thing to say about it. So Marcus Jones is the pick. That is who we're going to be going with there at 93. And Jordan, you're now going to be on the clock, my guy, at 105. We're going to let this thing roll to 105 and see what's available, see who's there, and see what we want to do and what you're thinking here and what direction you want to go. And look at that. You brought up a handful of names. Donovan West still available at that spot, as well as a couple of names that we were familiar with. I know you had mentioned edge rusher as well that you wanted to look at. Do you want me to pull up that edge rusher list really quick? We lost your audio there. I think you went to mute there real quick. Go ahead and
my
unmute for me.
apologies.
There we go.
Yeah, the edge I really like is there at the top. It's D'Angelo Malone out of Western Kentucky. My guy Brad, you guys know Brad from the SF Niners. Brad Graham has been on Malone for like the longest time. He would not.
He tweets about him daily.
Respectfully, would not shut up about the guy. I love Brad, but he would not, be quiet about him. And that's how I was with Aziz Ojulari last year. And we talked a ton about it. So I want to thank Brad because it's like he returned the favor from our discussions last year when I was bugging him every day, like, hey, go watch this edge from Georgia. Go watch this guy. He's really good. Malone, to me, fits more of that, like Vish mentioned, that Paschal might not be that, like, prototypical guy with bend and twitch off the edge who's probably more tailored for, like, a specialized pass rushing role. To me, Malone fits that to a T. And he's also somebody, again, who played at Western Kentucky. He's in the Conference USA, but has tremendous production to match what you see on tape. He's led all defensive linemen across the FBS in tackles 2 out of the last 3 seasons. He was Conference USA Defensive Player of the Year 2 out of the last 3 years. He's been first team all defensive Conference USA 3 years running. And to me, he's just somebody where I look at, and they have really good burst off the line of scrimmage. They have that natural bend. He's good with his hands. He's strong enough to get in under guys' pads, utilize a bull rush as well. To be honest with you, I'm kind of sitting here and I'm shocked that he's being mocked in this range. Like the mock I put out that got published this morning, I actually traded up to 83 with Pittsburgh to get him because I think he's somebody that teams will ultimately be higher on. But the way the board is shaking out, I'll be honest with you, the player who I probably would have taken no brainer right here is Luke Fortner, the interior offensive lineman from Kentucky. I think he went at 102 to Miami, which is funny because obviously Mike McDaniel's running the show there now. They're going to be running a very similar scheme. If Fortner were to fall in this range, I like him a lot because he's somebody who has a wealth of experience at left guard, center, and right guard. And with the uncertainty that the 49ers have, again, Alex Mack is kind of on his last legs in terms of his career. He's kind of riding off into the sunset, it seems like. You don't know what you have in Aaron Banks yet. I really like him. Is he going to play on the left side? Is he going to play on the right side? And as much as I like Dan Brunskill, I believe next season he's going to be an unrestricted free agent. If I have it correct, I think he'll have 4 seasons accrued. So you don't really there's a tremendous amount of uncertainty. So a player like Fortner would have been ideal because he would address have the ability to address any of those 3 spots in my eyes. Like you could feasibly plug him in anywhere. Since he's not there, again, I really, really like D'Angelo Malone, but I also think at a certain point, like you have to have a path towards snaps and path towards a role. And as much as I think you can never have too many good edge rushers, I also think the drop off of interior offensive linemen gets really steep after this. So I would take Donovan West here because he's another guy. While he may not have the same, tremendous versatility that Fortner has, he still is somebody who I think could play any of those 3 interior positions and would excel as a center in this aggressive outside zone scheme. And I just think that that's an area that it's better to be a year too early than a year too late addressing that need. So I would take Donovan West here just simply based on the fact that I don't think the value is there with interior offensive linemen as we get later into that, just based from my experience doing all these mocks on the PFF system.
Okay. I mean, I like that there. Look, I think going O-line here is the best option. I think you got 3 guys there right at the top of the board that all would kind of fit in some way, shape, or form. Kellen Dyche would be a little bit more of the outlier because he's more of a pass pro aficionado, I guess, coming out. He's really good in pass protection. Not as great in the run. That doesn't necessarily fit the Niners scheme or system. But I'll make the pitch for Zach Tom for one specific reason, and that's flexibility. San Francisco loves flexibility. They like guys who can do a lot of different things in the line, who can move around. Zach Tom is shown he can move around. He's been taking snaps and doing things at center. He's played tackle. He's played guard. Talk about versatility, being able to plug this guy anywhere on the O-line. If they think he's talented enough here at this spot, this may be a guy that they feel is, hey, if something's wrong with McGlinchey, this guy could potentially start at tackle. Hey, we don't like where Banks' development is. Maybe this guy could start at guard. And, worst comes to worst, if something happens down the road in the future with Alex Mack, this guy has shown the flexibility to potentially move inside. And if Brunskill is not the long-term option for a Mack replacement, maybe a guy like Zach Tom is. I think it'd be so enticing at this spot that the Niners would be sitting there going, wow, this guy can do pretty much anything we need him to. Let's figure out what works best and then play him there. So I'll make the pitch for Zach Tom there. Ant, what about you? What are you feeling?
Can you bring up interior offensive linemen real quick?
Absolutely.
Because I want to see if a couple of guys have come off the board. I do like where Jordan is going with this. But I see right there, I see Cam Jurgens. I see Alec Lindstrom, 2 guys that I really like. that are centers that could potentially play guard. Lindstrom, already fits in the system. He can roll day one. So I think that if you're looking for a guy that's going to eventually replace Alex Mack, the thought process is they're not going to play right now. So these two guys would be developmental guys. Potentially you could get with your 4th round pick. You can get him there at 134. So maybe you don't have to go Donovan West now. You could go with somebody that's a little bit more impact of a player. We haven't addressed wide receiver yet. That is something to also consider. So I don't know. I think there's some options here potentially. I mean, we see Tyquan Thornton. That's going to be later as an impact player. Still wondering about his physicality. But I think Cam Jurgens and Alec Lindstrom, I actually like so much. I potentially would push, maybe a pause on getting Donovan West, even though I really do like the player. He's a very solid player.
There it is. Vish, what about you? Any guy you want to make a pitch for?
Yeah, I want to
here?
see the safety board.
Ooh,
Absolutely.
I like it.
Absolutely, my guy. Safeties, there you go.
Yeah, so the only safety of the guys left, and this is kind of the issue I think with this draft, is because I actually did safeties recently. And I came away thinking like, wow, this safety class is special. There's like 8 guys I look at that, man, can be day one starters between Hamilton, Lewis Seen for sure, Daxton Hill, Petre, Brian Cook, Brisker, and I think there was one more in there that I'm forgetting. The only one that kind of intrigues me is Percy Butler. I haven't seen Verone McKinley, though I've seen that a lot of people talk about it. I'm personally not a Leon O'Neal fan. His physical deficiencies scare me. I don't know if he's a starting safety, though. I mean, I cannot say, anything about a player right now. So I'm pretty unhappy with what's kind of left. I think given what's left at safety, I think I would also go offensive line at this point. But my issue is that I have not studied the offensive line in this draft, and I don't think I plan to. I don't like watching offensive linemen. It doesn't make sense to me because it's so hard to project. One guy really dominates in college. He looks really good on film. The run scheme translates Aaron Banks, and then it turns out first day of training camp, even though he's 330 pounds, the guy still needs to develop a little bit in terms of his body and get stronger. So that with offensive linemen, because there's a learning curve and such a steep jump between, what's NFL strength and athleticism, I hate watching it and I hate projecting it. So I probably won't do it. Of the 2 guys you talked about, I think I'm going to go with Zach Tom, solely because you mentioned the versatility. And if we're going to talk about backup offensive linemen, I like positional versatility more. I think Donovan West, and I've also heard of Zach Tom actually a little bit more than Donovan West. No offense, Jordan. If you tweeted about him more, then maybe I'd be agreeing with you. But you didn't tweet about him enough for me. I heard about Zach Tom just a little bit more scrolling through Twitter and all of that. So for that reason, I think I would agree with you on that aspect.
Hey, and that's fine. But at the end of the day, GM Jordan gets to make the final decision. So GM Jordan, where are you going with this?
I'm taking West, and I'll tell you why. When I was in Indianapolis, I had the pleasure of speaking with Brandon Thorne for a little bit. I can't tell you enough nice things about what a great guy he was and how generous he was to give me his time. For those of you who don't know, Brandon Thorne to me is like the utmost authority on offensive line play, because like Vish, I am not particularly strong suited when it comes to doing, I feel much more comfortable evaluating other position groups rather than the offensive line. And when I talked to him in depth about, potential replacements for Alex Mack, who would fit into the 49er system, Donovan West was a name that kept coming up. I know Brad really liked him as well. So it really put me on this, train where I started diving into his stuff. I like Cam Jurgens a lot. He moved really well at the combine. He looked like somebody that had a lot of potential. I think is a little bit more raw. Alec Lindstrom was extremely impressive on the podium. Like his understanding of zone concepts and his understanding of what he needs to do as a blocker in that scheme is phenomenal. But after talking to a couple people, again, whose evaluations I trust way more than myself, they don't think he has NFL size, and they have him as like a 7th round grade. They have like a 7th round grade on him. And it made me kind of take a step back and go, hey, as enamored as I was with the brain and the speaking ability and the ability to digest and install and, understand his responsibilities as a blocker, you still need to have that size. And just like Vish mentioned, there's plenty of guys who look the part that get to the NFL and struggle. So it's really hard for me to wait until the 5th or 6th round and then take a guy like Lindstrom. And then next year you're right back looking for a center and you're back looking, trying to find, like, generally speaking, these guys don't really hit free agency, these impact centers. Like, yeah, the 49ers paid a bunch of money to Weston Richburg. He was serviceable while he was there. I think he was a good player, but to me, it's something, again, I think it's so important in this offense to get ahead and get a guy that can be that long-term pairing with Trey Lance, which is why I would feel more comfortable taking Donovan West, feeling like I'm getting, like, you may not get the versatility you get with Tom, but I think you're getting a specified role with a really physical player who has the ability to be the center for the 49ers for the next 5 to 7 years beyond Alex Mack.
Yeah, I think what would be interesting about this is be only the second time the San Francisco 49ers under Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch would go interior offensive line. Aaron Banks being the first time, this the second. Normally draft tackles to play other positions, but it could be a trend as they move forward. Maybe that's something Chris Forrester is bringing to the table where he wants more specified roles, but you made some very solid points. So really good. You sold us on Donovan West. Well done.
Great job. And Vish, now back to you, good sir, at 134. Anything you want to do? Do you want to be trading? You want to just make the pick at 134? What are you thinking?
Yeah, you're getting to the point of the draft where usually I'm just paying attention to it on my phone. I usually, when I study the draft, because it takes me a really, really long time to watch prospects, because there's just so much to learn to be able to watch them correctly and, have, somewhat of an informed opinion on it, because you got to learn first, what scheme does the team run? How does that guy fit within the scheme? Then what exactly, are you looking for? All of those things. It's a long time that I watch maybe 40, 50, 60 players. I never get this far. Like, we're getting into players that, I see it all the time. Jordan's constantly doing it. In fact, he's tweeting about players that I've never even heard of because I don't watch college football either. Saturday is my homework day, though. Now that I'm graduating college, I might become a college football aficionado as well myself. But I don't watch college football, and we get to the point in the draft where we just talk about players I've never even heard of. There's a few exceptions usually here and there, but so honestly, I'm ready to just see what's there on the board. There's still one safety I like. If he makes it there, then I'm going to take him. If he doesn't, then I'm going to opt to defer to my co-GM and have him make the pick.
Would you agree, and I think you would, real quick, Vish, that, like, so I got flack from people from my mock I did because I had no safeties in my mock. And my whole thinking is like, hey, if I'm doing a mock draft, I'm like a pseudo GM, right? And the best course of action, in my opinion, based on the fact all those safeties Vish mentioned are probably going before the 49ers have a chance to take them. At least the majority of those top end guys at the position, their best bet is to re-sign Jaquiski Tartt. Like, that to me is like a no-brainer at this point. And it's like shocking that they haven't really addressed that.
I don't think that's happening personally.
No, I don't either. I'm just saying, like, if it were, like, that would be the best course of option. I'm not saying that I think it's going to happen. I'm just saying, like, if I'm running a team, I'm paying him what he's worth and I'm bringing him back because he's a dependable player and you know what you're getting, rather than getting to this point in the draft where, you are kind of like, hey, I like this safety, but it's not really like, you're not excited about the pick, it seems like, you know what I mean? Like, or at least that's how it's been for me. There's a certain drop off where I'm just kind of like, yeah, like, I like this safety, but I mean, they're probably going to be like, like, what are they going to bring that Hufanga is not bringing to the, like, in terms of like where they'll be on the depth chart,
And that's a real thing, right? I think what he brought up is actually worth the conversation just in draft in general. Like, teams aren't looking at it as, okay, I drafted my edge rusher, I checked one need. Now, whatever safety's there, I'm going to take him, check one need. The board doesn't work that way. It's more what's valued and what's available there. Like, heck, I'd have liked to have taken a safety with one of those first two picks, especially because with the way I view Odom, Tarvarius Moore, and Hufanga, I would have loved to draft one of these guys. I told you I really like 7 of them. Well, if an edge rusher I really like is there, I'm taking the edge rusher 10 times out of 10 over the safety. If Marcus Jones specifically is on the draft board, I'm taking him 10 times out of 10 over the safety because he's phenomenal. So because of that and the way the board works out that way, sometimes it's just not an opportunity and you don't get the opportunity to take a safety. Right here, I just want to look at what safeties are available. I think there's one guy that I looked at, and that was Percy Butler. I think he might be gone, though. I don't even think Percy Butler is the safety that the 49ers necessarily need this point, but I think he's the one guy I looked at that would be there at this point in the draft with starting capability, and I think he was taken.
No,
He
he's
is
still
available right
Oh,
there.
there he is. So that's who I would take. I don't even love the fit. I don't even love the fit for the 49ers with Percy Butler. I also think Percy Butler's got a chance to be a starter, but I don't think he could be that year one. I'm not sure about that. That's kind of my lukewarm who I would take, but also I think there's other ways to go. I wouldn't mind taking a running back somewhere here. I know that's a little bit unpopular, but I'm not 100% on the, because Elijah Mitchell had a fantastic rookie season, he's going to be the Niners bell cow for the next 3 to 4 years. That's never how the running back position has worked with the Shanahans. I mean, do you guys remember Olandis Gary's rookie season for Mike Shanahan? Who did they draft the very next year in the first round?
Portis, right?
Clinton
Portis.
Yeah.
Olandis Gary ran for 1,200 yards as a rookie, and they drafted Clinton Portis in the first round. So I think there's an opportunity to go running back. That's probably what I would look at. I think you got to bring another guy in as a starter because I'm not 100% sure at this point that Jermichael Hasty makes the 53, and I don't know where Jeff Wilson is. I don't know if his knee is still bothering him. I don't know what's going on with him physically. So I do think running back is a little bit more of a positional need, though. I think Trey Sermon's going to surprise people next year. I'm still on the Trey Sermon bandwagon, so we'll see what happens with that. But that's kind of what I look at this point. I don't really have a guy. If I had a guy, it would be Percy Butler. But we've also reached a point in the draft where I'm talking about the one guy I studied, and there's like 200 players still available, and I didn't study them, so I don't want to just pick a guy.
Yeah, I feel you there. And why don't you give us a guy that you want to pitch here first at this spot, and then Jordan, we'll go to you and let you two pitch a gentleman here. Is there a position you want to look at, Ant?
Well, since Vish brought up running backs, I'll go ahead and pitch a running back, and that's Pierre Strong, a 4.3 guy, was the fastest guy at the combine. So you got a big guy, he's well over 200 pounds, very fast. Now he would need a little bit of development, but he's a guy that is got some ability, and you're looking for somebody that could potentially take the speed role that is now gone by Raheem Mostert being gone, because right now, even though Elijah Mitchell is fast, he's still a 4.4 guy, where Pierre Strong, 4.3. It's a little bit faster. That's the difference between breaking an angle and getting caught. There's a big difference there. And then I think he's a difference maker compared to what Jeff Wilson Jr. is. We don't know how the meniscus is going to look in year 2, recovering from that. And then you're right about Jermichael Hasty. We would need a third down back. Now, I think Ty Chandler later on in this draft from North Carolina could fill that third down back role if you're looking to move on from Jermichael Hasty. So you could do it later. But I would go with Pierre Strong right here, even though I really like Jaquandre White. But I couldn't make as compelling argument for him in the spot.
Yeah, wait. I didn't know Pierre Strong was here. That's somebody I've actually watched. Yeah, I'd 100% go Pierre Strong here. I like Pierre. To me, Pierre Strong is a Shanahan back to the T. That's who I would go. Yeah.
Jordan, what are you thinking here? Is there a position you're looking at?
No, at this point, I'm pretty much just looking, like, if you go to like the general board, I really like Cordell Flott. I think he's somebody that he's gotten overlooked a little bit because he looks a little bit wiry. I think people think he's like super undersized, and like my whole thinking is that, like, hey, you can put on 10 pounds of muscle, you can hit the weight room, you can get a little bit bigger, but he had really good coverage ability. He was in that LSU secondary starting as their nickel the last couple of years. He stood out a bit watching Stingley. Just, I know the Niners aren't going to take him. Just watching him is where he really stood out to me. But I think with Marcus Jones, the need isn't like particularly there. A couple of guys that I've really liked in this range, like I've taken Otito Ogbonnia from UCLA, the interior defensive lineman. I don't know how much of a need interior defensive line is if you really need to make that leap this soon. Some running back prospects I really like. Pierre Strong, you guys mentioned. Rashad White from Arizona State's another fun one. The guy I really like that I haven't seen talked about too much is Devontae Price out of Florida International. He's somebody to me that really has an ability to potentially be a every down back at a certain point based on his physical ability. He's a very strong runner. He has 4.3 speed. He wasn't as consistent as you may have liked at, the collegiate level, if we're talking about projecting, but he's somebody I really like. But to be honest with you, like, I have no problem with Pierre Strong being the pick here either. I know a lot of people like him. I think he's, again, somebody who has that top end explosion the 49ers need. I see it mentioned in the chat, and I see people talk about it all the time because I agree with you. And I've mentioned that while I don't think that there's an issue with Elijah Mitchell, he also doesn't have the top end speed that will be vacated from that running back room with Raheem Mostert gone. And I think that people get misled because of a 40 time that he ran at his pro day when he doesn't look like a 4.32 or 4.3, whatever he ran at his pro day. He doesn't look like that with pads on. So it really doesn't matter what you look like, running in shorts if it doesn't translate. Strong is a guy where it does translate. So I'm fine with that pick. Absolutely. I think that at this point, there's nobody that's on the board where it's like such an egregious miss to like take a running back here. And I'd much rather see them continue to address the running back position in the actual draft than just wait for the priority undrafted free agents every year. I'm liking that there seems to be a little bit of a pivot towards getting more talented players earlier in the draft at the position.
Yeah, and one thing I do want to say, because I saw that on the chat, he ran 4.32. I think the 40 time is bullshit. I don't really care what a guy does from 0 to 40 yards in tights. Right. When they're cutting weight for it anyway, to run it. I care more about just pure explosion, 0 to 10 yards. And I don't think Elijah Mitchell has special explosion compared to the other Shanahan backs when we're talking about the 0 to 10 yards. Like I've talked about it, like I think I've probably been the most prominent person saying this. I used to get a lot of crap because I used to say Deebo Samuel was a lot faster than Brandon Ayuk, and people would bring up their miles per hour when they both ran 50 yards or their 40 times. When Ayuk ran with the core muscle jersey injury and Deebo only ran 4.48. Explosion, 0 to 10 yards, pure quickness and pure just power explosion to me is much more valuable than what a guy runs, over 40 yards, because sometimes it's build-up speed. Deebo Samuel's explosion is 4.3 all day on the football field. Like it's 4.3, 4.2. It's one of the fastest players when it comes to just reaching your top speed with pure acceleration speed. It's special. It's out of this world speed. And so I think that, speaking of Pierre Strong, I think he has that type speed. I think I would love the pick of Pierre Strong because I think worst case he brings competition to the running back room. And again, Kyle Shanahan has taken how many backs now? He's taken Trey Sermon, he's taken Joe Williams, he's taken Elijah Mitchell. I think he would be a good pick here. I don't think that they're going to shy away from taking another back. This might be maybe a little bit earlier than they might go, but I do think they'll take a back in this draft.
Well, there you go, man. I think this is your selection here. I'm not going to argue against anything that you guys have said. I like all the pitches that have been made. So if you want it to be Pierre Strong, my guy, just say the word. Let's get it done.
And what do you think?
Yeah, I'm taking Pierre Strong if I was you. So yeah, I would go Pierre Strong right now. Let's see him light it up and get a nice rotation going in the backfield for Kyle.
Love it.
Yeah, I mean the only other guy, like I mentioned, would be Percy Butler. That would be the only other guy because I think
I think he might be available though. I think he might still be available.
Yeah, that's what
when
I
we
was
get to
going to say.
170.
I think if you go Percy Butler, to me, Percy Butler, worst case he's Tarvarius Moore, where he's a hell of a special teamer and never plays. Best case he's a little more explosive Quandre Diggs type player. That's the type of potential I think he has.
I like that.
I don't know if Diggs is the exact comparison, but when it comes down to coming down and making tackles in the alley from depth, that's kind of who he reminded me of. I mean, Quandre Diggs historically, Seattle runs a very, very single high defense, so they've come to more 2 high looks over the last couple years. 5-6 yards, that's Quandre Diggs' mark. He's going to come and find you right there, 5-6 yards past the line of scrimmage and hit you in the alley. He's phenomenal at doing that. That's kind of who Pierre Strong a little bit Percy Butler reminded me of. But yeah, we're past that. So yeah.
Hey, it's all good, man. I like the pick. It's a great selection. And now we wait just a little bit. We get to 187 here, Jordan. And 172. My apologies. I got one pick ahead of myself there, and just one pick ahead of myself there. We get to 172, and there's going to be some options on the board. Is there a specific position at this point, Jordan, that you're wanting to fill, or is it more of just best player available?
To be honest with you, I go pretty much. I try to go best player available from top to bottom. I think you use free agency to address holes, and you go BPA from top. Like that's just to me like it. I hope that I'm not just stating the obvious and everyone's like, well, yeah, duh. Like, but that to me is how teams should operate, because ultimately you can find ways to make things work. Like, remember, Dallas, I remember, got a bunch of flack from some people when they took CeeDee Lamb a couple of years ago, because they already had a pretty strong receiving group. Well, it doesn't matter. CeeDee Lamb's a game-changing player. I think he has the potential to be one of the best, 5 to 7 receivers in the NFL. And it's kind of my philosophy that you can figure things out and make things work and make signings to plug holes. You're not all like, I'm not overlooking talent simply because I might have a hole at a certain position or I might have a need. If it's coming down to, well, I really like this running back and I really like the safety, but I have a stronger need at safety or there's less depth, sure, that totally comes into play. But I'm not going in and reaching 10 or 15 spots just because I have a need at a certain position. Like, I think it's better to just take whoever's at the top of your board. So I never really go into these. I try to address certain positions for sure, but I don't go in, well, I took a corner, so I have to take this or I have to take that. It's more so just like with the center thing earlier. I really didn't feel great about the center prospects that I knew would be there where we're at now in the draft. So I felt much better addressing that need a little bit sooner, if that makes sense. So it's never going to be strictly based on positional need, but it does have it's certainly going to weigh into things a little bit.
Fair. Definitely fair there. And anybody here that sticks out in your mind that you're thinking Jordan should be taking a look at?
Well, I mean, once again, we still haven't talked wide receiver, right? And we know we don't have all the wide receivers. We did address it a little bit in free agency, some guys that are going to be able to help. So maybe right now is a time where you could go wide receiver. I see Velus Jones, wide receiver from Tennessee, a very good player, a lot of speed, has some thickness to him, so he can do some cool things. Also has return ability. I liked him. Reggie Roberson, someone from SMU, being overshadowed by Danny Gray as it would be. But I was actually on Reggie Roberson last year. I got some of his film and was watching. Very impressed by him. Those are two guys. I don't know if this is early for them, but I like both of those guys and what they could do in Kyle Shanahan's scheme. And I think you could still see them add a player with the versatility, not only to play, play as the fourth or fifth receiver for the 49ers, but also to add on special teams. Those would be two guys I'd be interested in.
I like those options there. Vish, anybody here that you're looking at? I saw your boy Percy Butler is still
Percy
on
Butler.
the board.
That's who I would take.
You go Percy Butler here. I like it, and it's not a reach at this point either. I mean, it's something that you said, right, might be available here at the 172 spot. Here we are at 172. It's still there. I think there's
the draft, and I think that something that annoys me sometimes at times in the 4th and 5th round is I find GMs taking, players, and it's usually done with the quarterbacks at this point in the draft. Like, at this point, we'll take a quarterback who has no chance of starting, but man, he could be Case Keenum for 10 years. So let's take him now. And I always mid and later round draft picks is who on your board do you think has the potential to start? And how much do you trust your development? And if you trust your coaching staff, and I think the best thing about the 49ers is their coaching staff. I think a lot of their lower round development, I think the scouts and personnel department gets way too much credit. I think it is the coaching staff. I think the coaching staff makes magic happen in terms of player development. I think that higher round picks, that's where it becomes a little more difficult. But I do think a lot of the lower round picks success has to do with the coaching staff. I think this is one of the best player development stats in football. And so because of that, I've said it I think for the last 3 picks, to me, Percy Butler is the one guy I looked at with the safeties left since we started looking them that had the chance, in my opinion, physically to be a starter in the NFL for a while. So at this point, I think it would make sense. Worst case, he's a hell of a special teamer. Best case, if things go right, I mean, he's a starter and maybe even a good one because he's pretty gifted.
Not a bad pitch there, Vish. I can't argue with you on that. There's some positive things there to like about Percy Butler. But Ant, I'm going to go in your category as well. I'm going to go the wide receiver route. I'm going to go with trying to address the offense and give more weapons and provide more weapons on the field. I'm not going to make the pitch for Velus Jones right now because I still think he'll be available the next time you come around the board. But there was a run on wide receivers literally right before we selected.
I saw that.
3 wideouts just went. So if you don't grab a Reggie Roberson right now, he will not be available that time you get back around to 187. Melton just went. Gray just went. Tyquan Thornton just went. Bang, bang, bang. 3 of the last 4 picks. I feel like if you want to address wide receiver, this is kind of the spot to do it. You're hoping a guy like Danny Gray would be there at 172. The Niners have already met with him. I think they like his run after the catch ability. But Reggie Roberson is basically Danny Gray. SMU had 2 wide receivers that had very similar skill sets, did very similar things on the field. They're very comparable in terms of how they played on the football field. The run after the catch ability is the big one, something that Kyle Shanahan loves. I think he would slide in and fit into the system right away. Is he the barn
Is
burner
Roberson great?
No, 20. This last season it was 21, I believe. Was it not, Ant?
Yeah, number? I believe he. Danny Gray was 5. I think Roberson was 8. I think I'm not.
Yeah.
There was a time he was 8, but he wore 21. I think as well.
Okay.
I'm not sure when though.
Yeah. I know who you're talking about. Because I watched a game from Danny Gray for 2 years ago, and then I watched one from this year. 21. Yes, I didn't know they were the same player. I know who you're talking about. I didn't watch it and anything, but his speed stands out even when you're trying to watch Danny Gray, whose speed also stands out. He's got speed kills. But yeah, I mean, it's Jordan's pick, so we'll see what he does.
What are you thinking here, Jordan?
So I'm kind of torn because I think that they definitely are in the market to take a receiver in this range. You know, I don't like, I know a lot of people want like them to take one at 61 or 90. Like, I don't see that happening in the early part of the draft. I definitely think they're in range here. So I'm kind of torn, right? Because I think Vish made a really good case for a guy like Percy Butler, and more so the player. Like, my whole thing is that, like, just like, you know, we've talked about, the draft is a crapshoot, right? I don't fault people if they miss on evaluate. It gets really hard. To me, what I will always, you know, evaluate on is based on the logic that got you to making a selection. And Vish's logic of, hey, this just looks to me out of the guys left on the board like the guy who has the potential to be a starter. That's the kind of value I'm looking for in this range. Because if we're being realistic, the odds of these guys, you know, coming on and making the roster as like a quality depth piece at this point probably aren't much better than they are of them, you know, being a starter down the line. And I'd much rather like swing for the fences on a player like that. So I think any good front office is going to, you know, weigh options and not get stuck with their own. Because there's a couple players that I really like here, but I also think that player that I am really coveting might be available at 187. So here's what I'm going to do. I think that you guys both made great cases for receivers. I like one as well. I'm going to take Percy Butler because Vish sold me on that here. And then when we come around to 187, I'm going to make the case for a wide receiver because I think that's where we'll really find some value. And maybe we can be the ones to push Vish in that direction and make that selection.
I like it, well Jordan. Played. Very well played. Percy Butler is the selection. Solid choice. Selection there.
Well, Vish got his guy.
He got his guy, and Vish pounded the table. He brought him up.
He went Adam Peters, yeah.
He literally did. I absolutely love it, Vish.
2 years from now, if Percy Butler fails, hopefully they don't tie me to this pick the way John Lynch tied Adam Peters to Embry Thomas after the draft last year.
What are you talking about? I got a tweet ready just in case this doesn't work. I'm coming after you.
You already texted Schefter. You already texted Schefter that it was in the front office. It was me that pounded the table for Percy Butler, and you were all over taking whichever wide receiver at that range succeeds.
That's right. Exactly.
I absolutely love it, gentlemen. And look, I'm going to pull this up here in 1 second here. 1 second, sir. I'm going to pull up these wide receivers because Vish is now on the clock. Vish is the one who wants making the selection. And he already said it, Jordan. Who is the gentleman? Is he still available? Wow. Is he still there?
He is there.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want me to go to it now or wait till you guys go, but he is there.
No, go ahead.
You start.
Go for it.
The guy that I really like, I got to see up close at the Combine too, was impressed with, and I thought would profile great into this offense as a, you know, third, fourth, fifth option is Jalen Naylor from Michigan State. He's somebody to me that looked really good with the ball in his hands, really good yak ability. He averaged over 19 yards per reception this past season, and a lot of that was generated with what he was doing with the ball in his hands after the catch. Very physical. He looked good in some big games for Michigan State in the Big Ten, where I thought he rose to that level of competition in that tough environment. Like, little things like that do matter for me. So he's somebody that I'm looking at where they may not have the, you know, blazing 40 time of a Tyquan Thornton. You know, I really liked Bo Melton. He may not have that same 4.3 speed as a guy like Bo Melton, but I think Jalen Nailor is somebody that would be a perfect fit for this Shanahan offense as a deeper receiving option, where if you get to a point where Debo or Ayuk is missing games, no offense, you're not throwing out a guy like River Craft in a game, you know, that's during the regular season, and having them be a vital cog in your offense during a game that, you know, I like to think all regular season games are must win. I'd like to see them add a little bit more top end talent at the back end of the receiving room, which I think Nailor would bring.
Damn,
I like
River
that argument.
catching strays out here. Poor River Craycraft. What did he do to take that?
I don't know. Craycraft, one of the best names in football. He's got that going for him. And I think about it this way. He screwed himself over because he got cut before the NFC Championship game. All he had to do was be a little more aggressive and go pick up that damn football, but he let Hufanga pick it up.
Tried.
Next thing you know, he's not on the roster before the NFC Championship game.
He did everything. I remember watching that game live and sitting there as the ball's fluttering in the air and seeing River Craycraft downfield, putting his foot into the ground and screaming downhill. I was like, oh my God, River Craycraft is going to be the hero. That was literally running through my mind as the punt got blocked in the air. River Craycraft is about to be the hero in Lambeau Field in a huge playoff game for the 49ers. I'm just happy it was Talanoa Hufanga. I'm very happy it was Talanoa Hufanga.
Even though I really did like Jordan's pitch for Jalen Nailor, and Jalen Nailor's been coming up a lot when we've been talking about these guys, I'm going to go with Roberson. And the reason I'm going to go with Roberson is at this point in the draft, I want elite traits, and one of those elite traits is speed. The one thing I do know about Roberson is he's fast. And so anytime that I get to this point, I just want to draft guys that have elite traits that could potentially be developed by this coaching staff into being something in the future. Whether it pans out or not is another question. But I think that that's one thing I would go off of. But what Jordan said about Nailor is right. He's a very good player. The run after the catch is good. I'm just leaning towards an elite trait here with Roberson, a guy that can take the top off and go deep, and he does make a lot of plays down the field.
Vish,
Nailor can run too, right? Nailor can run too, right? I thought Nailor was pretty fast.
Yeah, his nickname is Speedy. That's what his teammates nicknamed him.
There you go.
Whatever it's worth.
Yeah.
I don't think you can go wrong with either guy, man. I really don't think you can go wrong with either guy.
I have to, you know, we're a front office here that works very much together. We really like each other. Matt Miller won't be reporting that there's tension in our front office anytime soon. And because Jordan was kind enough to take Percy Butler, I will go Jalen Nailor here.
I like it.
I also did watch a couple Michigan State games because I really like the running back. I think the running back is phenomenal. If I've seen Jalen Nailor a little bit, I think he's number 8.
He's good,
and he can run too. I don't know what he ran at the combine, but it looked like he could really, really run, and he had pretty good body control. It's with his speed, which is always phenomenal. So I'm gonna go Jalen Nailor here.
I will add this real quick too. He had 9.9 yards after the catch per reception. That was the 4th highest in the entire country last year.
That's definitely a Kyle Shanahan guy. To be honest with you, I can't agree with you all the time. I got to throw out some other guys, right? We got to have some sort of a conversation about
I literally did take a dog in this fight because either guy is fine there. I love either gentleman. They both fit the scheme.
Ant's texting Matt Miller now. He first texted Schefter about me and Percy Butler. Now he's texting Matt Miller saying there's discord in our front office.
Oh,
that's right. I am the leak. There may be no leaks in San Francisco, but there are leaks coming from this 49ers war room for sure.
All right, look, we're back on the board here with you here at 220, Jordan. 220. Let me pull the best available players up on the board. We got back-to-back picks here. It's really hard to mess this up. We can go anything you want here. We can go any route you want to go. What are you thinking? What are you feeling with the names that you're seeing right now?
Can you scroll down to around 230? If I recall correctly, I think the player's somewhere in that range if they're still there. If not, oh, no, he's gone. Okay, so there's a guy who I've been taking a ton here, which is Jack Jones, the corner from Arizona State.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Really, really sound player. One of the better man coverage corners in the whole class. To be honest, his only real concern is that he had some off-the-field issues back in 2018. But as of now, hey, we all make mistakes in life. I'm far from a perfect human being. There hasn't been anything that, jumped off the radar since then that would overly concern me. So I'm kind of at the point now where if he was available, I would sprint to the podium just because, again, you're kind of banking on your coaching staff and your culture getting the best out of a player who has those traits and has that man coverage ability. I'm seeing he's gone now. The only other guy that I've been taking a ton here that I'm not seeing is Spencer Burford, but I think he might be gone too. So this is
oh yeah, good tackle.
This is quite. Oh no, is he still there? Okay.
He is available.
Spencer Burford, boom. That's what I take right here. He's somebody who I think again has the traits to be a developmental guy. Could whether it's as a swing tackle and somebody that's just kind of providing depth, I think he'd be great there. But I think he has the athletic traits to eventually be a starter. He's another guy I talked to Brandon Thorne with at length when I asked him about guys who would be fit specifically for the 49ers. Burford was a name that he threw out there, so I took a closer look. I really like him, and at that value, what's essentially a 7th-round pick, they're compensatory picks at the back end of the 6th round. Again, at that point, like, give me a guy with traits that I might be able to coach up into a role on the team going forward. And if you miss, like, at the end of the day, nobody's coming back and nitpicking your compensatory 6th-round pick selections. Like, I think it's a great value there. Or you'd hope they're not. You never know with 49ers Twitter, but you'd hope they wouldn't.
I actually can't argue with anything, including what you were making for your first option, who was going to be available. So, like last time, I threw out something just to throw something out. I actually can't argue with anything that you're thinking about because I do like Burford as well. I think he's got a lot of ability and could end up sliding onto your practice squad as somebody that develops if he doesn't make your initial roster. So I think that would be a solid selection. Another guy with positional flexibility.
Extreme positional flexibility.
Damn, Ant heard that we found out that he was the one leaking to Matt Miller, so now he's sucking up to Jordan to ensure that he won't get booted out of the front office.
There you go. I can't be the guy that falls off and is out of this front office. I gotta go smooth. So yeah, I'm gonna smooth a little bit right here.
That's good schmoozing, and it's a good guy to schmooze on. In all honesty, right. Burford is fantastic. I love the things that I've seen out of him. This was a highly touted prospect who went to UTSA, has been the anchor on that offensive line, and has the flexibility. I had mentioned earlier when I made the pitch for Zach Tom, right? The versatility, the flexibility, be able to move around, do some different things. This guy can do that. Tackle prospect on the outside, can move inside of the interior as well. This is a solid choice here, Jordan, if this is the route you want to go. There will be no hiccups from me. There will be no leaking from me. This is all go. I'm ready to press the button for you.
I just sent a text that Alex was against Tom earlier, but wow. It was just saying it. Yeah.
Wow. Can't believe this.
I see. So if I was doing this draft with Jason Aponte instead of Jordan, I think I would take a punter here and take a punter with the next pick just to spite him. But I'm not. Love it. I have no complaints. I think that, again, this is the point of the draft that I get to. No offense, all these players, I hope they reach their NFL dream, but I don't care about this point in the draft usually. So usually I'm not aware of anybody unless they're a really prominent name that did something in college football that made them go viral or something like that. But I would like, if I was drafting at this point, I think there were two positions I'd really look at. One is that versatile offensive lineman that you can maybe develop into a good backup at multiple spots that could start in a pinch. And then the other would be just a one technique, a straight up big body space eating nose tackle. That's the other position I would look at this point, because I think those are the two positions you can actually develop people. I'm 100% in on the pick of the guy you guys suggested. See, I don't even know his name. And don't leak that.
It's Burford.
But I'm in on that.
Jordan, I like it. That's going to be the selection there. Your boy Burford out of UTSA. This is a solid choice here.
Very.
And now, Vish, we get to come back to you. And look, you just pitched it. You just pitched it at punter there.
Matt Ariaza.
You pitched golden leg man, gentlemen. If you're frustrated with the kicker, if you're frustrated with the punter, if you're frustrated with Mitch Wisnowski not flipping the field, Matt Ariaza can flip the field. He can. And if you want a meme on Jason Aponte right now, feel free, my guy. It's all good because look, depends on what you're feeling.
I'll say what I would do realistically so that your audience does not look at me funny. And at this point, I think I would actually trade this pick and try to get a 7th for next year, a 6th for next year. That's what I would do. But
the Dolphins,
we're having a good time on this podcast, and I would love to spite my buddy Jason Aponte. And so because of that, I'm here to take the golden leg punter, as you coined him.
I absolutely love it. Does anyone want to say no? Let's take the draft capital and run. Are we going punter here?
No, for every reason Vish said, this absolutely has to happen now. Jason Aponte gets this, and he will like it. That's what I'm saying.
In fact, I was a little disappointed because I know that Chapman and Jason did one on here last time. If I was Chapman, and I'm glad it wasn't me with Jason, I think Jordan would do the same thing. In fact, I think I would have taken a kicker or a punter with every one of my picks just to troll him. So, which wouldn't have been very professional. So I'm glad it wasn't me doing that. But it's pick 222. I don't think that we will be drafting the next Tom Brady, 30 picks or 23 picks after Tom Brady actually got drafted. So I'm here for the golden leg. I don't know what Jordan thinks.
Yeah, so I'll be honest with you, like I don't fault like I know a lot of people are upset about the whole Wishnowsky pick years ago. I don't think it's like that egregious. I in hindsight, like there weren't that many, like there was nobody in that range between Wishnowsky and Greenlaw being selected where I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe the 49ers took a punter over this guy. But I also think
no, because they did trade down, right, originally for Wishnowsky, and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson was sitting right there.
Okay, so that's fair.
They traded down.
Okay, that's fair. But from where the selection was made, when I went back and looked, there was okay. I will say that Ariaz is a guy, like his leg is insane. Like it's actually something where like flipping field position is way more important. Like I get it's not sexy. People don't want to talk about flipping field position in special teams. It's huge. And this dude was nuking 80-yard punts at the combine with backspin, pinning the ball on the sideline. Like it would be a great pick. I'm all for it. I'm all for owning Jason at any and every opportunity. I texted this guy a dozen times throughout the season. Every time Mitch Wishnowsky had a good punt, I was texting him within 5 seconds. You better believe the second I saw that special teams player of the month or week or whatever it was, I was flooding this man's phone with pictures and graphics of it. So I'm all on board with that. I will say really quickly, though, a guy, I don't know how easy it's going to be to get the film or like at least more than a couple of games of it. But there's a player that I've looked into from Georgia Southern, CJ Wright, he's a little undersized. He's like 6 foot 295, if I recall correctly, 6 foot 285, something like that. But he was really productive in that 0-1 tech, played a little bit of 3 tech as well, had 6 sacks last season. So if you are, a front office that doesn't know about Jason Aponte and you're sticking to that, interior defensive line guy, I really like CJ Wright. I've taken him a couple times at either 220 or 221, but I am 1,000% on board with not only taking a punter, but taking a great punter who will shake up the market and completely revalue the position and make Jason Aponte weep. Let's go San Diego State.
You know what they say? You can never have too many good punters. We're not just going to trade a punter to trade a punter.
I'm just saying, the iron sharpens iron. Think about every cliche that you got fed during the Jimmy Garoppolo, Trey Lance training camp, whatever, quarterback competition. Would that same thing not apply to the punter position? Because I'm just looking for some consistencies here.
Hey, the 49ers, as the co-GM of the 49ers, I came into this offseason looking to strengthen the punter position. And I've achieved that because not only do I have a starting punter, I have a backup punter too now.
You gave yourself option power, Vish, and that's all we're looking for at the end of the day.
Exactly.
Power at the punter position.
As someone in chat just said, we now have 2 legitimate starting punters in the league. We can totally get a 5th-round pick for it. We're in business. We're in business.
And Kyle Shanahan has talked about it. You can't be the best at every position. I came into this draft wanting to have the best punting unit in the NFL. You want to talk about an offseason of strengthening your special teams? Is this not the best special teams in football? We can put 2 punters on the field now. You don't know which guy's going to punt it.
I was just going to say, what if you did that and you sacrificed one of your gunners to throw off the defense and you have 2 punters back there? Like, where are they going to go? Where are they going to chase this block?
You have Mitch Wishnowsky take the snap, throw it laterally to the sideline where our other punter has been sneakily hiding, and then he bombs it down the field. Opposite directional kick. They'll never know what's coming.
Changing the game.
Exactly. This is football philosophy.
This is changing how football is going to be played going forward, gentlemen. Look, the solid selection there, solid choice, Matt Ariaza, Jason Aponte.
Did you say that with the straight face? Could you manage the solid choice with the straight face?
Probably not.
He will probably argue punter though, because he was a punter in high school, and got all league. So we've had to hear the story a few times. So he could probably sell the punter thing.
I could sell the punter thing. I'm not going to like legitimately do it because I actually like Mitch Wishnowsky. But hey, you know what? Matt Ariaza does have a golden leg. He can bomb that thing 80 yards. And now we got Mr. Irrelevant. Pick 262, the last pick of the draft. Is there anything, is there a specific name that you guys usually are looking at in these areas that we should be talking about? Because I already know what 49ers Fogey in our chat is saying. He's saying Connor Hayward out of Michigan State. You don't take anyone else. You take Connor Hayward, Mr. Irrelevant. What are you guys feeling here?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever watched the draft this far. I don't care at this point, to be totally honest with you. I will not be watching when this guy gets drafted. I promise you that. I will be doing something else. But I'm not the GM for this pick, luckily, so I can just sit back and enjoy and watch what Jordan and Ant do.
Okay.
I'll be honest, I would probably have tried it to like get rid of this pick or package it with a different pick to like just not like if I'm the 49ers GM and I'm already focused on coordinating the picks that I actually care about and getting them on planes to Santa Clara and sorting out their entrance interviews and press conferences, I am hopefully still not paying attention to the draft, or I'm already at the point where I'm getting my priority undrafted free agents together. It's a gimmick. I get it. The whole Mr. Irrelevant thing. I hate it because you're sitting there like I am, I pride myself in the amount of work I put in, especially the work people don't see. I'm disgusted at how many players I've actually watched that potentially could go in this range. And it just shouldn't have to happen. But to appease the chat again, hey, Connor Hayward's interesting, right? I watched him a ton at the combine because he's a guy where he looked a little bit oversized to be a traditional fullback and a little bit undersized to be a traditional tight end. So, I like Josh Hockett. I think he's good with what he's asked to do. He's a practice squad guy who would get elevated if Juszczyk misses time. Maybe he eventually becomes that succession plan as Juszczyk gets a little bit older, maybe overprices himself. I would have no problem with Connor Hayward. But again, let's just throw a dart at the dartboard. Take Slade Bolden from Alabama. I've seen enough from him that I like. And, again, maybe it's just a camp body. But at this point, like, again, I'm with Vish, dude. I don't want to be disrespectful to any of these guys, but I don't care, man. Like, this person's not making the final roster, so it doesn't matter. Like, and I say that as the next Tom Brady gets drafted. It's going to be Dustin.
Right.
So I was going to suggest the next Tom Brady. Let's take Scott Tolzien 2.0 and Brock Purdy.
Oh, there you go.
Actually, that's more of a palpable dart throw, because at the end of the day, somebody was willing to give up draft capital for Nick Mullins at a certain point. If you can get Brock Purdy in the building and get enough rumbling, we have Ant start leaking that Purdy's out there throwing darts at training camp and throwing dicing up the second team defense.
You all know it's going to happen. If a quarterback got drafted at 262, it is 100% going to get reported.
Of course,
it's 100% going to happen.
In reality, though, I do think one of these two drafts, I would love for the 49ers to take a young quarterback and stop giving Nate Sudfeld $2 million guaranteed, because they quote unquote think he has starter potential, when all of us know that Nate Sudfeld should not be starting in an NFL football game. And I'd love to see them take a guy and try and develop him to be a backup, because if Trey Lance becomes everything they want him to be, and we know how much the league reveres Kyle Shanahan, that quarterback would become all of a sudden a wanted commodity in some sort of way. And they could probably turn that into some sort of a valuable asset. I don't know if Purdy's that guy, because his arm is, it's tough. It's not a very good arm, but Purdy, I think there's a Scott Tolzien quality to him. And maybe even a Nick Mullins-ish quality to him. To be Mr. Irrelevant, I think they should go quarterback at some point seriously, like 5th or 6th round, and try and develop a guy. Again, I don't think Purdy is that guy, because there's just a really, really big physical limitation here and deficiency, but I wouldn't mind taking him at this point. I mean, we got our punter, so I'm sitting happy no matter what happens in this draft.
Yeah, and what you don't know is me and Alex took a private jet, kind of like Harbaugh did, when he went and watched Peyton Manning, and we're sitting there, and I was watching Dustin Crum from Kent State, and I'm just like, yeah, this guy can really wing it. And so I'm going to make a pitch for weird throwing motion of Dustin Crum coming in and letting Brian Greasy get his hands all over him as he adds him to the Greasy Boys, as it would be.
Has Cole Kelly been taken yet? Is he?
Let's look.
Don't know.
Let's look. I'll search the name. We'll see.
I agree with what Vish said. I think there's value to be had. Okay,
He's there.
I would take Cole Kelly just because he's like 6'7", he has a huge arm. So at the worst case, maybe you're getting like a lower end version of Brock Osweiler. And at a certain point, teams were lighting up the phones to get Brock Osweiler on their team. So maybe you could make remake history. I'm also with the Brock Purdy thing. Like maybe you draft him just knowing that a couple years down the road you're gonna have a big game in a meaningless season where Brock Purdy comes out and puts up 34 points against a longtime rival in the last installment of a rivalry game, as we saw with Nick Mullins against the Raiders.
I mean, if we're gonna go on the run, I don't think Jack Cohen fits this mold. I think De'Aaron King actually has an intriguing skill set that you could maybe turn into Tyler Huntley-ish, quote unquote. I think I wouldn't mind taking a quarterback here. Is it me that's making the decision?
I believe
Jordan.
It is Jordan's selection here.
Perfect.
But
so Jordan, you have your pick of quarterback.
Which guy do you want?
He's making a good case for it. I'll be honest with you. I'll take the quarterback now because we're already committed. Like there's no turning back. But I do think that I agree 100% with what Vish said. They have to take one in the next couple of years to develop because it's just cheaper to have a backup. I think you're better off taking a guy who had like Tyler Huntley. We saw came out and played really well, but he also brought an immediate floor with his rushing ability. Where if you do have to fill in for Trey Lance for a game or two, you can at least create some offense and generate some kind of production utilizing your rushing ability. So I think that they definitely need to look at a guy on day 3 in the next couple of drafts to fill that role. I do think next year's quarterback class is a little bit better, or not a little bit, it's a lot better, let's be honest. It's a lot better top to bottom. So if they don't do it this year, I think next year they absolutely should. But we're in the moment, we're in the here and now. I like Kelly, I like Purdy. I got to watch De'Aaron King throw with Malik Willis in a hallway at the Indiana Convention Center, and the ball was jumping out of his hands in a way that stood out a little bit. Like I watched all these guys throw over the course of that week, and he's somebody it feels like he's been in college for 10 years. He was at Houston for a while. He's been at Miami for a few years. Let's go De'Aaron King, man. Like I like it. I'm sold on that. Let's wrap it up with that. That's a good pick.
Yeah, so I like that we went quarterback actually because I'd like for them to do it when Sudfeld is still on the roster because then there's no pressure on the guy to be a backup or anything. You can just have him on his slow developmental track. I think I would have gone Cohn or De'Aaron King. I think I would have gone Cohen, but I like De'Aaron King too. Apparently he slings in hotel hallways. So
let me tell you, this guy and Malik Willis were getting after it, dude. I didn't want to put him on the spot, but I wanted to tell him I've seen Jason Aponte work out at a pro day, and I was like, hey, if you guys need an extra pair of hands out there catching footballs, my guy might.
No. I saw the video. I saw the video of those Butterfingers.
It could have been one of the worst routes I've ever seen, too. I mean, come on, he's got to get in and out of his break a little bit better than that.
Just a smidge.
Yeah, honestly, I've been out with the Ponte too. I have some questions elsewhere as well. I wouldn't have a Ponte on my draft board. I don't know about you guys. There's a few questions there for me, personally, but of course. Luckily,
it's been reported from his college coaches that his focus might not be entirely on football, and he might be prone to some bad decisions off the field.
And then I also I'm a little bit worried. He seems to be one of these new age social media cats, always on Twitter, tweeting, and he's always watching these superhero movies. I mean,
he's got a TikTok now too, man. He's doing TikTok also.
Oh shoot. Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, off my draft board. I need guys who are 100%. They eat, sleep, breathe football.
Well, you heard it from both of these gentlemen, TCC. They have absolutely killed this. They have killed War Room. Talk about we brought it up at the beginning. Talk about two of the smartest guys in the room and also two of the funniest guys in the room. Absolutely knocking it out of the park this entire War Room. Man, what an episode.
Yeah, that was great, guys. You guys did a fantastic job. I like your reasoning for each step of the way. Like, it wasn't just about the pick itself, but also, as it relates to the 49ers. I like that. I like the discourse we were able to have. I thought it was a really good conversation. So I hope everyone enjoyed it as much as I did, and if they didn't, at least we got to enjoy it. So
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, this was awesome. I had totally a great time. I totally lost track of time. In fact, I texted you guys because I have a bunch of deadlines coming up right now with projects and stuff. And I'm like, shoot, yo, blah, blah, blah. And I came in here while doing the project. Next thing I know, 2 hours just flew just like this. So I'm going to have a long night doing it, but at least I was able to enjoy myself. Appreciate you guys for having me. You guys are awesome. And Jordan, of course, is fantastic as well.
Absolutely. Hey, Vish, before we wrap up and be done for the night, let everyone know where they can find you and where they can follow you.
Yeah, I mean, you can just follow me on Twitter at Vish Kumaran. That's my Twitter. I wasn't the most popular guy on Twitter. There was a 2 or 3 day stretch where I wasn't the most popular guy on Twitter. It happens, but I think that I usually tweet obviously about the 49ers. I tweet about football, and I try to stay as authentic as possible and true to myself. And that's what I can. I don't know if you always agree with me. I don't. We might not always agree, but I try to be as authentic to myself as possible. And I love football. I study it on any given free time I have. My mind's always thinking about it. It's always a great hobby for me. I used to do some YouTube stuff. I'm going to be bringing my YouTube back. That's in the works once I graduate college. I'm enjoying my senior year. And then I do a Monday show with everybody's favorite beat reporter, Grant Cohn, called Mondays with Vish. Recently, I was actually just studying the statistics because I was trying to figure out what a part of my content does best in terms of numbers for me to reincorporate myself back into doing the YouTube and stuff. And it turns out it does pretty good numbers. So do check it out if you haven't already.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's where I saw you first.
That's the first time I saw you too. Was Mondays with Grant. And Jordan,
that's the first time anybody saw me. Yeah, I was
fair. It's fair, but hey, it's all good. Jordan too, as well, man. It was an absolute blast having you on, man. Finally, good to get you both in here. Let everyone know where they can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. It was an absolute pleasure coming on. Literally happy to anytime. And again, it's always a pleasure talking with Vish. He's somebody who I have tremendous respect for, not only the knowledge, but the depth that he'll go into to explain how we got. Because as you saw today, like we may not agree on everything. There's plenty. I won't get into it now. We got into a little debate about basketball stuff a few days ago. And even though I still disagree, Vish made a lot of really good points where I'm like kind of sitting there rethinking something that I went out and said with my chest. And I just applaud the ability to do that in a way that's never uncivil and always has me thinking rather than just like, oh, this guy just disagrees with me, I'm going to ignore. Like it's very thought provoking and it's very rare. So I wanted to give him his due credit for that. But you can find
Appreciate it. I mean, Jordan, you deserve your credit too. I think one thing that anybody can't say about you is that you study as much as anybody and you're willing to have your opinions. And I think the debate is the best part about this. I think that we all have our opinions and we enjoy debating. I personally love it. As long as the discourse is civil or whatever, I think it can get a little uncivil on social media, which is disappointing. But I think the debate is the most enjoyable part of it. Like I actually prefer to talk to people who have their own thoughts where we can actually discuss something that I might learn something rather than just talk to people who will just agree with me because it's not interesting. So I love doing this with you. I appreciate the hell out of you.
Totally agree. You too, dude. Thank you so much. And again, for whatever it's worth coming from me, like when Vish gets his YouTube back up, like you're going to want to tune in and watch that. So I'll do whatever I can to help share it. In terms of my own stuff, I'm a staff writer at Niners Nation. So I do work for them as well as some just general NFL stuff for SB Nation. I'm trying really hard to pump out as much draft content stuff as possible. So like I did a mock draft today. Yesterday, I did a piece where I went back and I looked at the last few years of just like, how the picks have shaken out in that range where the Niners have their first 3 picks. So I tried my best to, kind of carve a separate lane outside of, the Deebo Samuel and Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo stuff, because while those conversations are worth having, I think also like there's not really much I can add to it that hasn't already been said. So if you're kind of at that point too, where you're looking for something different, I hope I can at least provide that. So that's kind of my goal now. And then you can find me at Twitter. My @ is Lee Elliot now. I changed it after a long run as Splash Cousin. Some of you might have seen it as there. I got bullied by people who I kind of lean on as mentors in this field who've, carved careers in sports journalism. And they're like, dude, you need a serious Twitter handle. Like, you need to grow up. Nobody's going to take you seriously with this Twitter handle. So That's where you can find most of my stuff now. But again, I'm kind of trying to get into the YouTube thing. It's really hard schedule-wise. Like, dude, I did a piece a couple nights ago where I was up till like 2:30 in the morning going back and pulling data from like the last, few years worth of drafts and stuff like that. So I'm kind of trying to focus on my written work for now. So if you do still appreciate written work and articles, I hope I can at least provide you something that's entertaining, even if just for a few moments at a time.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Both of you guys are great, and I would recommend anyone to either one of your channels, to anything you guys write, your Twitters as well. You guys do a fantastic job. I know we follow you guys, so I've seen everything you guys have been putting out, and it's always good. And like I said, Jordan turned me on to Ezra Gray as well, so that's really good. So yeah, I'm super excited to be able to work with you guys because I thought you guys added a lot to the table and something different than what we've had so far. We had Chapman and Aponte, and we just have you guys have a different angle on how you see it. And that's the funnest part, is having all the different perspectives that come from all the different content creators and reporters. I think that's one of the funnest things, is just, even though we all see the same thing, we see it differently.
Hey, I got to say one more thing, Ant. The shirt and the hat are sick. I just noticed them because I finally got to see it up close. The merch is sick. I don't know if you guys are selling the merch, but I might have to go get me one of these 49ers cutback shirts because they're looking fly.
Yeah, and we're actually getting ready to drop some new merch here in the next couple weeks.
All right, perfect.
So yeah, there's going to be some new stuff coming. So yeah, we're having fun with the merch shop right now.
Hey, 49erscutbackshop.com. Thank you for the free plug, Vish. We appreciate that.
Thanks, Vish. I appreciate it.
Look, it was an absolute blast. Thank you both for coming on. We really appreciate it. Cutback crew, we got 49ers War Room Aftermath for Patreon and channel members. We'll catch you for that. Gentlemen, both of you, thank you so much. TCC, go show them some love. Give them the subscribes. Give them the follows on all the socials. And check out the articles, too, that Mr. Jordan Elliot is writing for SB Nation. It's absolutely fantastic. Until the next one, Cutback Crew and the Faithful, stay safe.
Remember, the right way is always the 49ers way. You subscribed, but are you a channel member? You probably should be.
You get extra additional content, Madden gameplays, you get early access to tons of different videos, as well as what do we call those things again? Oh, that's right. Live membership only live streams. That's right. Only for members, only for you. You get all of our time, and not just football, Ant.
Yeah, lots of other stuff as well. So go ahead and click the join button right now and join the 49ers Cutback Crew.
Get some cool emojis also.
Oh, yeah, that as well.